You wake up to the sound of your alarm, feeling rested and ready to start the day. You've done everything right for your health. Regular checkups, daily walks, and a breakfast you've believed for years is the gold standard for seniors. But then, one morning, without warning, your vision blurs, your arm weakens, and your words become jumbled. In less than 15 minutes, you're in the emergency room, and a doctor is explaining that you've just had a stroke. What if I told you the culprit wasn't smoking, greasy fast food, or a lifetime of bad habits, but a breakfast you thought was helping you stay healthy? This isn't just a story. It's exactly what happened to Mrs. Evelyn Thompson, a 68-year-old retired teacher. She'd been starting her mornings with a big glass of orange juice, whole grain toast with margarine, and a cup of coffee, a routine she thought was doctor approved. Yet that very combination set the stage for a vascular event that could have ended her life. The rapid blood sugar spike from the juice, combined with the inflammatory fats in her spread and the caffeine surge from her coffee, created the perfect storm for her aging arteries. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Now, let's talk about why this happened and why it could happen to you or someone you love. As we age, the blood vessels that carry oxygen-rich blood to the brain become less flexible. Decades of wear and tear on the arterial walls, combined with slower repair processes, mean that sudden changes in blood pressure and blood sugar can have far more dangerous consequences than they did in your 30s or 40s. That glass of orange juice Evelyn drank every morning. It contained about 21 grams of sugar, nearly the equivalent of 5 teaspoons, all hitting her bloodstream in a matter of minutes. In a younger person, the body's insulin response can usually handle such a surge without much trouble. But in a 60-plus body, the system isn't as efficient. The pancreas may release insulin more slowly, and the blood sugar spike lasts longer, putting stress on the lining of the arteries. Then there's the toast with margarine. Margarine, especially the cheaper varieties Evelyn preferred for its cholesterol-free label, often contains trans fats or high levels of omega-6 fatty acids. These fats can trigger inflammation inside blood vessels, making it easier for cholesterol plaques to form and harder for the vessels to relax when blood flow increases. And coffee, while not inherently bad, can be risky if consumed in large amounts on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. The caffeine surge causes a temporary spike in blood pressure. For a senior with stiffened arteries, this extra pressure can be enough to dislodge a tiny clot or rupture a fragile plaque, leading to a stroke. When all three of these factors happen together, the sugar rush, the inflammatory fats, and the blood pressure spike, Evelyn's already vulnerable brain arteries couldn't cope. A small clot formed and traveled to her brain, cutting off blood supply to a portion of her left hemisphere. Thankfully, she received treatment quickly and recovered most of her function, but her speech and balance are still not quite the same. The truly frightening part? Evelyn's breakfast was not unusual. Millions of seniors worldwide start their day the same way, believing they are making healthy choices. And the food industry reinforces this belief with marketing that highlights whole grains, vitamin C, and cholesterol-free claims, while hiding the potential dangers for aging bodies. I'm not telling you to give up breakfast. Far from it. Breakfast can be an incredibly important meal, setting the tone for stable energy and sharp thinking throughout the day. But what you choose to put on your plate in the morning matters far more than most seniors realize. In the next section, I'm going to break down exactly how your arteries change with age and why even mild blood sugar or blood pressure surges can become ticking time bombs for your brain health. If you think juice and toast are harmless, you might be in for a serious wake-up call. Your arteries are not the same tubes they were when you were 30. In your younger years, the inner lining of your blood vessels, called the endothelium, was smooth, flexible, and responsive. It could expand and contract easily, helping to regulate blood pressure and keep blood flowing smoothly. But as the decades pass, microscopic damage from everyday life begins to add up. Tiny injuries to the vessel walls, from high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and even environmental toxins, trigger the body's repair response. Over time, this healing process often leaves behind patches of thicker, stiffer tissue. The once elastic vessels lose their spring, becoming more like brittle pipes than supple hoses. This condition, known as vascular stiffening, is one of the most dangerous, yet least understood risks for seniors over 60. Why does this matter for your breakfast? Because a stiffened artery reacts very differently to a sugar surge than a healthy one. Imagine pouring a sudden rush of water into a rigid pipe. The pressure has nowhere to go, so it spikes instantly. In your body, that spike means your heart has to pump harder, and your brain's fragile vessels bear the brunt of the force. This is exactly what happened to John, a 72-year-old retired postman who thought his morning routine was spotless. Every day, he'd have a healthy granola with raisins and honey, paired with a banana and a splash of milk. It looked harmless, natural, unprocessed, full of fiber, but hidden in that bowl was nearly 50 grams of sugar. Within 30 minutes of eating, John's blood sugar would spike rapidly. His aging arteries, already stiff from years of untreated mild hypertension, couldn't absorb the extra pressure. On the morning of his stroke, he remembers standing up from the breakfast table and feeling an intense, sudden headache. Seconds later, his vision in one eye went black. Doctors confirmed he'd suffered a transient ischemic attack, TIA, a mini-stroke caused by a temporary blockage in the blood flow to the brain. The culprit wasn't a rare condition or a genetic time bomb. It was the perfect storm of sugar and arterial stiffness. Mainstream medicine has long acknowledged that high blood pressure is a major stroke risk, but here's the part that doesn't make it into every conversation. Even short-term spikes can be dangerous for seniors with stiffened arteries. It's not just about having high blood pressure all day long. It's about those brief, intense surges that happen after certain meals, especially in the morning when your body is naturally releasing stress hormones like cortisol. Add to that the fact that your blood is thicker in the morning due to overnight dehydration, and you have a recipe for trouble. A sugar-heavy breakfast pushes insulin levels up, triggers inflammation, and forces stiff vessels to handle a sudden increase in volume and pressure. The problem is, many so-called healthy breakfasts are built around exactly this kind of sugar load. Granola, fruit juice, flavored yogurts, and even certain breakfast bars can contain more sugar than a soda. And for seniors, these foods are marketed as energy-boosting, heart-healthy, or convenient. So, what's the takeaway? If your arteries are already showing signs of stiffness, something that happens naturally with age, you need to think about breakfast not just in terms of calories or vitamins, but in terms of how it impacts your vascular pressure within the first hour of eating. And here's the question you should be asking yourself now. If sugar spikes are bad, what about the hidden salt load in other healthy breakfast foods? Could sodium be quietly working alongside sugar to raise your stroke risk even higher? That's exactly what we'll uncover in the next section. Salt is a silent partner in far too many breakfast plates, and for seniors, it can be just as dangerous as sugar, if not more so. The problem isn't the pinch of salt you add to your eggs at home. It's the hidden sodium packed into foods marketed as healthy that can quietly push your blood pressure into the danger zone. Let's start with something as innocent-looking as whole grain cereal. Many brands tout their fiber content, vitamin fortification, and low-fat recipes, yet a single serving can contain 200 to 300 milligrams of sodium. And that's before you consider the milk, fruit toppings, or even the slice of toast you might have on the side. For the aging circulatory system, sodium is a direct stressor. When you eat too much of it, your body retains extra fluid in the bloodstream. This increases the total volume of blood your heart has to pump, putting additional pressure on the arterial walls. In young, flexible arteries, that pressure can be absorbed more easily. But in older, stiffer vessels, the added force can strain already weakened areas, increasing the risk of plaque rupture or even vessel rupture in the brain. Take the case of Harold, a 74-year-old former mechanic. Harold was proud of his healthy breakfast routine: oatmeal with a sprinkle of low-sodium granola, a veggie omelet made with egg whites, and a slice of whole-grain bread. What he didn't realize was that his bread contained nearly 200 milligrams of sodium per slice. His omelet vegetables had been sautéed from a frozen bag with hidden salt in the seasoning mix, and his granola was far from low sodium. By the time Harold finished his breakfast, he'd unknowingly consumed over 1,000 milligrams of sodium, almost half the daily limit recommended for seniors. One morning, after finishing this exact meal, Harold stood up and felt a sudden rush of dizziness. His blood pressure, already on the high side, had spiked dramatically. He collapsed moments later. At the hospital, tests showed that the combination of overnight dehydration and a sudden salt load had caused his blood vessels to constrict sharply, cutting off blood flow to a part of his brain. Harold survived, but he now walks with a cane and struggles with short-term memory. Mainstream medicine teaches that a high-sodium diet is linked to chronic hypertension, but for seniors, the danger is often immediate. Within hours of a sodium-heavy meal, blood pressure can jump enough to trigger a stroke, especially when combined with other warning factors like high cortisol levels, thicker blood, and, if paired with sugary foods, even greater vascular stress. The most deceptive part? Foods that don't taste salty can still be loaded with sodium. Whole grain breads, heart-healthy breakfast sandwiches, plant-based breakfast sausages, and even some almond butters can be sodium traps. The savory flavor might be mild, but the impact on your arteries is not. For seniors aiming to protect brain health, sodium awareness is critical. But it's not the only hidden threat sitting on your breakfast table. In fact, there's one type of fat, often praised as good for the heart, that can turn against you when exposed to heat or air, becoming a direct assault on your brain's blood vessels. And that's exactly what we'll discuss in the next section, how certain breakfast fats can shift from friend to foe in a matter of minutes. We've all heard about good cholesterol, HDL, and how it protects your heart. For decades, foods rich in certain fats have been marketed as heart-healthy, brain-boosting, and essential for longevity. But here's the part rarely mentioned in glossy ads. Under the wrong conditions, these same fats can oxidize, transforming into compounds that damage rather than protect your arteries. Oxidation is a chemical process that happens when fats are exposed to oxygen, heat, or light for too long. Once oxidized, fats can create free radicals, unstable molecules that attack the delicate lining of your blood vessels. In young, resilient arteries, the body's antioxidant defenses can often neutralize this threat. But in seniors, those defenses are weaker, and the damage is cumulative. Consider the case of Margaret, a 70-year-old retired nurse who prided herself on eating clean. Every morning, she'd make a smoothie with a scoop of flaxseed oil for omega-3s, a sprinkle of walnuts, and a dollop of almond butter on her toast. She kept her flaxseed oil bottle on the kitchen counter for convenience, not realizing that weeks of light and heat exposure had turned much of the oil rancid. Margaret began noticing more frequent headaches and episodes of lightheadedness. One day, while gardening after breakfast, she felt a sudden numbness on one side of her face. By the time she reached the hospital, doctors confirmed she'd had a minor ischemic stroke. Blood tests revealed significant oxidative stress markers, and her neurologist pointed out that oxidized oils can promote inflammation, making it easier for blood clots to form. Here's the lesser-known medical fact. HDL cholesterol, when damaged by oxidation, can actually lose its protective properties and start behaving like LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol. Instead of clearing plaque from your arteries, it can contribute to its formation. In breakfast terms, that means certain nuts, seeds, and plant oils, while beneficial in fresh, properly stored form, can turn harmful if they've been sitting in your pantry too long or exposed to cooking heat beyond their stability point. The danger is amplified in seniors because aging arteries often have microtears and plaque deposits already in place. Introducing oxidized fats into the bloodstream is like throwing gasoline on a smoldering fire. The resulting inflammation can destabilize plaques, increasing the risk of a sudden blockage. To make matters worse, many healthy breakfast spreads, from nut butters to plant-based margarines, use oils that are already oxidized during manufacturing or packaging. Once you spread them on toast or blend them into a hot oatmeal, you're ingesting a cocktail of oxidized lipids and free radicals. So, what's the solution? Freshness and storage matter. Oils like flaxseed or walnut should be refrigerated immediately after opening and used within weeks. Nuts and seeds should be stored in airtight containers, away from heat and light. And high-heat cooking oils should be chosen for their stability. Think avocado oil or light olive oil for gentle heating. Still, fats aren't the only natural breakfast element that can betray you. There's one more category, praised for its vitamins and antioxidants, that can silently erode brain blood flow, especially for seniors. And the twist? It's something many of you may be drinking right now. In the next section, we'll talk about the fruit juice trap and why even the purest glass can set off a dangerous chain reaction in your aging arteries. Fruit juice, even the 100% pure, no sugar added kind, has a halo of health around it. It's marketed as a vitamin-rich, antioxidant-packed way to start the day. Doctors recommend it for its vitamin C, and diet books praise it as a natural energy booster. But for seniors, a morning glass of juice can be a deceptively powerful trigger for vascular stress, and in some cases, a stroke. Here's why. When you eat a whole fruit, the fiber in its skin and pulp slows the absorption of its natural sugars, giving your body time to process them without extreme spikes in blood glucose. But juice removes most or all of that fiber, leaving you with a concentrated hit of fructose and glucose that rushes into your bloodstream. For a younger person with responsive arteries and a robust insulin system, this might not be a major problem. But for seniors, the combination of age-related insulin resistance, slower metabolism, and stiffer arteries means that sudden sugar load creates a perfect storm: rapid blood sugar spike, increased insulin release, followed by inflammatory changes in the blood vessel walls. Take the case of Daniel, a 69-year-old retired accountant. Every morning, Daniel would pour himself a tall glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, the kind he made himself, believing it was the healthiest choice possible. One morning, just 20 minutes after breakfast, he felt a wave of dizziness, a tightening in his jaw, and weakness in his right arm. He was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with an ischemic stroke. His doctors explained that while orange juice is natural, it delivers the sugar equivalent of several oranges in seconds. For Daniel's stiffened arteries, this sugar surge triggered inflammation and a cascade of changes in his blood's clotting ability. To make matters worse, fructose, the primary sugar in juice, is processed in the liver, where it can contribute to the production of triglycerides. High triglycerides further increase the risk of plaque buildup in arteries feeding the brain. Here's a lesser-known fact. A 2019 study found that people who consumed fruit juice daily had a higher risk of mortality than those who didn't, even after adjusting for other lifestyle factors. While the study didn't prove cause and effect, it highlighted that juice's natural label doesn't erase its metabolic impact, especially for seniors. The marketing around juice often emphasizes its vitamins and antioxidants, but these benefits can easily be obtained from whole fruits without the sugar flood. And for seniors with borderline diabetes, hypertension, or a history of cardiovascular disease, juice can be as metabolically disruptive as soda. What's more, the timing of juice consumption matters. Drinking it first thing in the morning, when your blood is already thicker from overnight dehydration and your cortisol levels are peaking, magnifies the vascular strain. That's why some stroke events, like Daniel's, happen within an hour of breakfast. If you love juice, the safer alternative is to dilute it heavily with water, limit yourself to a very small portion, or better yet, eat the whole fruit. Pairing fruit with protein or healthy fat also slows sugar absorption and reduces the blood sugar spike. But juice isn't the only healthy breakfast staple that can turn into a vascular hazard. In fact, there's another major culprit that hides in plain sight. One many seniors eat every morning for strength, but which can quietly accelerate the formation of dangerous blood clots. In the next section, we'll talk about protein choices that backfire, and why some breakfast proteins are anything but heart and brain-friendly. Protein is often seen as the hero of a healthy breakfast. It builds muscle, supports metabolism, and keeps you feeling full. For seniors, maintaining adequate protein intake is critical for preserving strength and preventing frailty. But here's the truth few people talk about. Not all proteins are created equal, and some common breakfast proteins can quietly raise your stroke risk by increasing inflammation, stiffening arteries, and even thickening your blood. The main culprits are processed meats and overly refined protein products. Bacon, sausage, ham, turkey slices, and even many lean breakfast patties contain high amounts of sodium, preservatives like nitrates and nitrites, and compounds formed during high heat cooking, all of which can damage the lining of your arteries. These foods don't just affect your heart over the long term. In the short term, they can trigger changes in your blood's clotting ability, raising your risk of a sudden blockage in the brain. Let's take the story of Robert, a 71-year-old retired firefighter. He believed he was doing everything right, exercising daily, keeping his weight down, and choosing turkey sausage over bacon for breakfast. He paired it with scrambled egg whites and whole grain toast. But what Robert didn't realize was that his turkey sausage contained nearly 800 milligrams of sodium per serving, plus added phosphates and preservatives to maintain texture and flavor. One morning, after finishing his breakfast and going for a brisk walk, Robert began to feel tingling in his left arm and slurred speech. By the time his wife called an ambulance, he had lost movement on one side of his body. Doctors later explained that the high sodium load from his breakfast had caused a sharp rise in blood pressure, while compounds in the processed meat promoted inflammation in his already plaque-lined arteries. This combination likely triggered the clot that caused his stroke. From a biochemical perspective, processed meats are particularly dangerous for seniors because sodium causes fluid retention, increasing blood pressure and vascular strain. Nitrates and nitrites can form nitrosamines in the body, which are linked to oxidative stress and vascular damage. Advanced glycation end products, AGs, formed when meats are cooked at high temperatures, contribute to arterial stiffening. Even certain high-protein breakfast powders and bars marketed as healthy can contain hidden sugars, hydrogenated oils, and artificial additives that undermine vascular health. Here's the mainstream medical fact. Adequate protein is vital for seniors to maintain muscle and prevent frailty. But here's the lesser-known truth. For brain and artery health, the source of that protein matters just as much as the amount. Lean, minimally processed sources like eggs, plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or unsalted nuts are generally safer than processed breakfast meats or protein bars with long ingredient lists. If you're relying on protein to start your day, think about what else is packaged with it. Does it come with excess sodium? Is it cooked in oxidized oils? Is it paired with refined carbs that will spike blood sugar? Unfortunately, there's another breakfast habit, seemingly harmless, that can quietly work against your vascular health. It's something many seniors drink daily, sometimes even in large amounts, believing it sharpens the mind and boosts energy. But for certain individuals, it may be setting the stage for the very strokes they're trying to avoid. In the next section, we'll uncover the overlooked link between caffeine and stroke risk in seniors, and how your morning cup might be doing more harm than good. For many seniors, coffee or tea isn't just a beverage, it's a ritual. That warm cup in the morning feels like a lifeline, jump-starting the day and clearing the fog. Caffeine, after all, is known for improving alertness, reaction time, and even mood. But here's what's rarely discussed. In older adults, caffeine can also be a potent vascular stressor, particularly when consumed in large amounts or on an empty stomach. Caffeine works by stimulating the central nervous system, prompting the adrenal glands to release adrenaline. This fight or flight hormone temporarily raises heart rate, constricts certain blood vessels, and increases blood pressure. In younger people, flexible arteries and robust cardiovascular systems can handle this surge with minimal strain. But in seniors, especially those with stiffened arteries or a history of hypertension, this sudden pressure spike can destabilize plaques or even rupture fragile vessel walls. Consider the case of Linda, a 66-year-old retired librarian. Every morning, she'd wake up and brew a large mug of strong coffee before eating anything. On most days, she felt energized and ready to take on her gardening or book club meetings. But one morning, just after finishing her second cup, she felt her heart racing, her vision flicker, and a wave of nausea wash over her. Minutes later, she collapsed. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed her with a hemorrhagic stroke, bleeding in the brain caused by the rupture of a small weakened artery. The likely trigger? A sudden spike in blood pressure from a caffeine surge, compounded by her pre-existing but undiagnosed vascular fragility. Here's the mainstream medical fact. Caffeine is a mild vasoconstrictor, meaning it narrows blood vessels and raises blood pressure. But here's the lesser-known truth. In seniors, the blood pressure increase can be significantly higher and last longer than in younger adults. Studies show that caffeine can raise systolic blood pressure by up to 10 millimeters of mercury in sensitive individuals, with effects lasting several hours. Timing also matters. Drinking coffee first thing in the morning, when cortisol levels are naturally highest, can amplify its cardiovascular effects. Pair that with an empty stomach, and the caffeine is absorbed faster, producing a more intense spike in both blood pressure and heart rate. Another overlooked factor is dehydration. Coffee and tea are mild diuretics, meaning they increase urine output. For seniors who are already mildly dehydrated from overnight fluid loss, this can thicken the blood and make clot formation more likely. Does this mean all seniors should avoid caffeine? Not necessarily. For most healthy adults, moderate intake, roughly 1 to 2 small cups per day, is unlikely to cause harm. But for those with hypertension, a history of stroke, or known vascular disease, it's worth monitoring both the amount and timing. Spacing caffeine after a balanced breakfast, drinking plenty of water, and avoiding extra strong brews can help reduce the risks. Still, caffeine is just one part of the puzzle. There's another category of breakfast foods, often labeled light, low-calorie, or diet-friendly, that can quietly wreak havoc on your vascular system by triggering rapid blood sugar crashes and stress responses. And many seniors unknowingly start their day with these foods, thinking they're making a smart choice. In the next section, we'll look at the refined grain problem and why those healthy morning breads and cereals may be anything but brain-friendly. Refined grains are a stealthy presence in many breakfast tables, often dressed up as wholesome choices. The packaging might shout whole wheat, multigrain, or light, but the reality is that many of these products are stripped of the very nutrients and fiber that make grains healthy in the first place. For seniors, starting the day with refined grains can be a hidden hazard, one that affects not just energy levels, but vascular stability and stroke risk. Here's why. Refined grains are rapidly broken down into glucose, causing a quick rise in blood sugar. This is followed by a sharp drop, a cycle that can stress the body's regulatory systems. In younger individuals, the body's insulin and vascular systems can adapt quickly, but in seniors, this roller coaster effect puts undue strain on stiffened arteries and can trigger inflammatory responses that increase clotting risk. Take the example of Walter, a 73-year-old former teacher who had recently switched from sugary cereals to light English muffins after reading about their lower calorie count. He topped them with a thin layer of fruit jam and washed it down with black coffee. It seemed like a sensible, lighter breakfast, but within an hour, Walter would often feel shaky, fatigued, and irritable. One morning, after a particularly busy start, he felt lightheaded and confused while walking to the mailbox. A neighbor noticed him stumbling and called 911. Doctors determined that Walter had suffered a minor ischemic stroke, likely triggered by a rapid drop in blood sugar after a spike. The refined grains from his muffin provided fast-digesting carbs with little fiber or protein to slow absorption, leading to a swift glucose surge followed by an equally steep crash. This fluctuation affected not only his energy but also the delicate balance of blood flow in his brain. The mainstream medical fact, refined grains, white bread, pastries, many breakfast cereals, are linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease due to their high glycemic index. But here's the lesser-known truth for seniors. Even products labeled whole wheat can act like refined grains if the flour is finely milled and lacks intact grain structures. The body processes them almost as quickly as white bread, producing the same blood sugar spikes. Pairing refined grains with other vascular stressors, like sugary spreads, sodium-rich toppings, or caffeine, compounds the problem. The sugar spike increases insulin, the insulin drop triggers stress hormones, and the net result is blood vessel instability at a time of day when the brain is especially vulnerable. For a healthier alternative, seniors should prioritize truly whole grains. Think steel-cut oats, sprouted grain bread, or whole barley, and always combine them with a source of protein and healthy fat to slow digestion. These swaps can provide steady energy without the dangerous peaks and valleys, but even the healthiest foods can become risky if eaten at the wrong time. And for seniors, timing can be just as important as the food itself when it comes to preventing strokes. In fact, there's one common breakfast timing mistake that can magnify all the risks we've discussed so far. That's exactly what we'll explore in the next section, the critical link between meal timing and stroke risk. When it comes to breakfast, most seniors focus on what they eat, but far fewer think about when they eat. Yet, for an aging cardiovascular system, timing can make the difference between a smooth, stable morning and a dangerous spike in stroke risk. Here's the problem. The body's natural rhythms change with age. Hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which help wake you up, are at their highest in the early morning. These hormones naturally raise blood pressure and make your blood more prone to clotting. This is part of why strokes and heart attacks occur more often in the morning hours. If you combine this hormonal peak with certain healthy breakfasts, you can intensify the strain on your arteries at exactly the wrong time. Consider the case of Patricia, a 67-year-old retired school principal. She liked to get up early, have a tall glass of juice, and head out for a brisk walk before sitting down to a larger breakfast. The problem? Drinking juice on an empty stomach during peak cortisol time meant she was hitting her system with a rapid sugar surge at a point in the day when her blood was already thicker from overnight dehydration. The combination of sugar spike, dehydration, and elevated morning blood pressure put tremendous stress on her brain's blood vessels. One morning, just minutes into her walk, Patricia felt a sudden heaviness in her right leg and a strange inability to speak clearly. She was rushed to the ER, where doctors confirmed she had suffered an ischemic stroke. They explained that her habit of eating high glycemic foods before rehydrating and stabilizing her blood pressure may have tipped the balance. The mainstream medical fact: timing meals can influence how the body responds to them, especially regarding blood sugar and blood pressure. But here's the lesser-known truth for seniors. Eating certain high-sugar or high-sodium foods during the morning's vascular danger window can amplify their harmful effects. In practical terms, this means hydration first. Drinking water before your first meal can help thin the blood and reduce clot risk. Avoiding pure carbs alone early. Having only juice, toast, or refined cereal during peak cortisol hours can magnify sugar spikes. Delaying caffeine slightly. Waiting 60 to 90 minutes before coffee allows cortisol to begin dropping, reducing the additive effect on blood pressure. Pairing foods smartly. If eating carbs, always combine them with protein and healthy fats to slow digestion. Unfortunately, many seniors rush breakfast, or worse, they skip it entirely, and then catch up later with a large, heavy meal. Both extremes can stress the vascular system in different ways. A very early, carb-heavy breakfast hits during peak clotting time, while a very late first meal can lead to overeating and postprandial, after-meal, blood pressure drops, which can also trigger events in those with unstable circulation. Timing, then, is not just a matter of preference, it's a protective strategy. And now that we've covered the 9 hidden risks tied to breakfast foods and habits, it's time to focus on solutions. How to enjoy breakfast in a way that supports brain and artery health rather than undermining it. In the final section, I'll give you a clear, senior-friendly morning plan with safe, satisfying alternatives to every risky choice we've discussed, so you can start your day with confidence instead of fear. By now, you've seen how easily a healthy breakfast can turn into a silent threat to your brain and arteries. Sugar spikes, hidden sodium, oxidized fats, fruit juice overload, processed proteins, caffeine surges, refined grains, and poor timing. Each of these on their own can strain your vascular system, but combined, they can create the perfect storm for a stroke. The good news? You have more control over your morning health than you might think. By making a few strategic changes, you can enjoy breakfast in a way that nourishes your body, stabilizes your blood vessels, and protects your brain for years to come. Here's your stroke-safe morning plan. Hydration. First, start your day with a full glass of water before anything else. This thins your blood after overnight dehydration and supports better circulation. For extra benefit, add a slice of lemon or a pinch of magnesium-rich mineral salt. Whole fruits. Over juices. Instead of orange juice, eat a whole orange, apple, or handful of berries. The fiber slows sugar absorption, preventing the dangerous glucose rush. Choose stable, healthy fats. Use avocado, chilled extra virgin olive oil, or freshly opened nut butters. Store oils in dark bottles in the fridge and discard anything that smells bitter or off. Lean, unprocessed proteins. Opt for eggs, plain Greek yogurt, unsalted nuts, or cottage cheese. Avoid processed breakfast meats and pre-flavored protein powders with long ingredient lists. True whole grains. Only swap. Refined breads and cereals for steel-cut oats, sprouted grain bread, or cooked barley. Always pair with protein or healthy fat to keep blood sugar steady. Mind the sodium red labels, even on healthy breads, cereals, and spreads. Aim for no more than 150 to 200 milligrams sodium per serving. Use fresh herbs and spices for flavor. Caffeine with care. If you enjoy coffee or tea, drink it after your first small meal instead of on an empty stomach. Keep to 1 to 2 cups and drink water alongside it. Time your breakfast. Wisely. If possible, delay your first high-carb food until at least 30 to 60 minutes after waking. Give your body time to rehydrate and let cortisol begin to drop. Safe and delicious breakfast. Examples. Option 1, 1 boiled egg, half an avocado, a slice of sprouted grain bread, and a cup of water. Option 2, steel-cut oats, topped with blueberries, chia seeds, and a spoon of Greek yogurt. Option 3, cottage cheese with sliced strawberries, walnuts, and cinnamon. Why this matters? Aging changes how your body handles sugar, salt, fats, and even natural stimulants like caffeine. Your arteries are more vulnerable, your blood may be more prone to clotting, and your brain's blood flow regulation can be less resilient. Every breakfast is an opportunity to either protect your circulation or strain it, and these small daily choices add up over years. Remember, breakfast is not the enemy. The wrong breakfast is. You can still enjoy your mornings, but you must choose foods and timing that respect the needs of your aging body. If you've learned something new from this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0, so I know how I can do better for you. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another health tip made just for you. Take charge of your mornings, protect your brain, and start every day knowing you're giving yourself the best shot at many more healthy years ahead.